Welcome back to the Hold Nothing Micro podcasts in honor of the launch of this book. I'm always nervous, always excited. I have my dearest friends here talking to me about their favorite passages and aspects of the book. And today I have the honor of interviewing and talking with Jeff Krasno, who's been my friend for like 2 decades. Wow. He is the co-founder and CEO of Commune, which is a masterclass platform for personal and societal well-being. And someday I will be on it. He hosts the Commune podcast, interviews a wide variety of real serious luminaries, so many different wonderful humans. He pens a personal weekly essay. And this, dear listener, is something you want to sign up for. It's called Co-Musings, and I'll definitely include all of the links, including his bio. He's also the author of Good Stress, which is a collection of wellness protocols all about putting your body under duress in a way that actually fortifies and makes us more resilient. Jeff and his better three quarters, not his better half, Schuyler Grant. Schuyler's been a dear friend of mine for that long. We opened up yoga studios at the same time around the early 2000s in New York. And they own and operate Commune Topanga, which is a 10-acre wellness center and basically a production lab where they host the regular retreats. I will definitely be coming there as well at some stage. They have 3 beautiful daughters who grew up with my son. And at the time, we were all in New York. Now they live in Los Angeles, California, and they are all just one more beautiful than the last. And I'm just so happy that you're here.
Thank you, Elena. Great to be with you as always.
Totally. I'm really also, I just want to focus and highlight on the way you're using your voice and your platforms to speak for compassion and balance and just general personal fortitude in this time so that we don't feel like we're being buffeted about by the winds of change. And I don't know, I think it's worth it just to say thank you for that. A lot of us are tossing your words around, and they're serving as a lot of comfort. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
The middle way can be lonely.
But it's the middle way, and it is the way. Like there's not a whole lot that we can do on a broad scale, but we can affect change very close to us and locally. And those are the things that you inspire us to do.
Yeah, I've been leaning into the serenity prayer, trying to identify the things within my control and having the courage to change them and, be aware of what's happening in the greater world, but not be overwhelmed by it and realize that the overwhelming majority of my reality just happens right here, in my home, with my children, in my neighborhood, with my friends, in my garden, and to focus there when needed. And there's a lot of serenity, there's a lot of agency in that, and then to get involved in your community to build change. So, but yeah, the avoidance of extremes is it's a spiritual belief for me. But it is also a lens through which I can see politics and social issues and to, try to foster common humanity, common ground, some coming together. I think really it's not a left versus right debate right now. It's actually a debate against the extremes. And this is where, I find a lot of solace in my own spiritual practice.
Thank you for that. That's actually really helpful. It makes it so that we're not just like putting our heads in the sand. We're actually just creating a body of resiliency that we can do the work on the ground to support the people who are nearest, and that has an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a great misunderstanding of equanimity as a passive way of life, and I might argue that a passive way of life is not an awful idea right now too, but it's really a confusion there. It's really being able to bring your full passionate self to the moment without over attachment to result. So we can do that. And I think that, when we bring our full selves to the moment, that, we start to see the ripples in our environment around us.
Yeah.
So that's my word of encouragement for the day for those
I'll
people
take it. I'm taking
feeling.
it.
Yeah, but that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about your latest shade of.
Shade of, you know what? It is why we're here, because this whole matter of, I pulled the second and third chapters, actually, no, third and fourth chapters for us to talk about. You may have pulled something else, but bearing witness and taking compassionate action, good medicine for our times. And I think this is what you bring to the party. I think you, in your age, we're now in our mid to late 50s. You are bringing this practice to us in your work. It's funny, you're just getting better as you get older. And this idea of bearing witness and seeing your kids grow up and seeing your marriage evolve in such a beautiful way. It's such an honoring way. And then watching you, how you take action to put yourself out there. You have a one-man show. Who does that? It's crazy.
Yeah, well, thanks for saying that. I mean, I will just say that, as parents, we so often want our influence on our children and just the people in our community more broadly to be explicit. We want them to take the best cello lessons, and we want to provide them with a great education and feed them all the grass-fed, grass-finished beefs or whatever. But I do really believe that the best way we can influence our children is through modeling behavior. And, they see us and they study us. And while they rarely listen to us, they rarely fail to imitate us. Right. And particularly for men right now, where the loudest voices in the room tend to be these kind of chest-thumping, swashbuckling, kind of shoot from the hip men. And, a lot of those men are the way they are because they grew up in environments of neglect and abuse and violence. And I think that's why it's incumbent upon us dads, us men, to try to model a different form of masculinity that, can be strong and irreverent and funny from time to time, but also compassionate and loving and affectionate. So this is how I'm trying to walk through life.
Yeah, you've done it. Your girls are amazing, and they all have a very different path, and they're all full of integrity.
Well, thank you. But I want to talk about your book because I've spent the last couple days with it. Is it okay if I just give you some impressions?
I would love that. Yeah, I'm really interested. We haven't spoken yet, dear listener, so I'm learning Jeff's impressions for the first time.
Yeah, well, I remember when you were kind enough to ask me for a little testimonial blurb, and so I got a first look at it, I don't know, maybe a few months ago. Right. And as I delved back into it, I got the same feeling that I did the first time. And I really, before speaking to the actual content, I want to speak to the feeling of the writing, not just words as symbols, but really tuning in to this sensation of the rhythm of the words and the space. And it really brings me to another place. In a way, it accomplishes its mission, without any symbology. It does really empty me. It kind of elicits this sort of kind of theta, liminal, wandering, serene place that feels very unchaotic. And it's just as if the mud is settling to the bottom of the pool. And I come away from that, the feeling of being with the words, very clear and very calm. And that is not my default. I've got the monkeyest mind. I'm right there with everybody else. Thoughts are branches, and I'm swinging from one to one fairly riotously from time to time.
Right.
But the feeling of the words, I remember, I think, when I wrote the blurb for the book, what came to me was a meditation practice that I have sometimes where it's sort of like a half-lidded meditation where I close my eyes halfway, and the objects that I label in the foreground of my conscious attention just really become light and shadow and shimmerings. And I try to stay in that space for some time and then turn that same quality of attention back onto myself and try to witness what is there, or more appropriately, what is not there. And that is the same feeling that I get inside of the book. So that's just a reflection on the feeling.
Thank you so much. It's funny, I pulled this quote from my great grand Dharma teacher. So like 3 generations before me. Her name is Catherine Thanis. And it's funny that you brought up the meditation with the eyes open and the seeing of the outlines. I have the same thing when I'm deep, day 4 of 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day. I get the same feeling, like keep your eyes squinted because there's nothing to see here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the less I try and make out, the easier it is for me to drop all the layers of the personality that I've built up over time. You've watched me, you've supported me even in building these layers, and they're dropping now, and it feels like such a relief.
Yeah, well, this is my other note. You've created the quite natural bridge into it, which is, and there's certain sections of the book that speak to this more explicitly, but that there is this personal journey that is punctuated by the removal of layers, koshas, sometimes people call them, right? But, for you, whether that's, the journey out of addiction or the journey out of the feeling of deficiency or the need to be seen as a fixer or to fix, the journey from talking to listening, this constant sort of removal of the layers. I often think about this process kind of in the context of my own life as, like these babushka kind of Russian dolls of like continuing to, take one away and take one away. And it's like, oh, I'm not my name. I'm not the thing that I do. I'm not what people think of me, right? All this stuff. And then you finally open the last one and what's there? Nothing's there. And, this is, this is a treat, if we get to experience the unraveling of this illusion of self, and given how often we're anchored into that delusion.
It's a pretty big privilege, I would say, and also really hard to allow our consciousness to become transparent to itself. It's crazy. It's also a crazy ask of a human being raised in this time. Crazier to ask it of our kids, but slowly they're starting to peek around the corner. At least Jonah is. He's starting to peek around the corner and tell me that he's meditating and tell me what he's working through. And he's part of James's mini men's group now. Like, super cool. And I'm seeing him see us do the work and start to do the work himself of dropping the protection and the layers, as you said.
Yeah. I mean, I think this kind of journey, this is a sort of a journey into interoception. There's another journey that I can witness within the context of the stories, which is slightly more linear, kind of within the context of sort of the ashramas, if you will. Here you are as student to householder to forest dweller to stepping into your sadhu, sannyasin, crone phase of your life, if you will. And that, that journey is one of kind of these really beautiful realizations, that you don't have to come into situations, with all of the knowledge and all of the insight. There's one little section of the book, I think you're talking about this work that you're doing in the church, and you're working with some kids with their homework. I think that's the Abyssinian church where you lived in Harlem.
Yep.
And you say this, I just highlighted this. Over time, I learned my real mission, not to come with knowledge or insight, but to come empty, opening, and listening.
Yep.
I won't have the words until more than 20 years later for what I've come to know as the practice that serves best in almost every context. Oof. That is a big learning.
Especially if you're a parent and you're listening to us, especially if you're a parent.
100%. And this is what one of the, I think, epiphanies I've had in my own parenting life. It's like, my middle daughter, Lolli, who, struggled with a whole bunch of different issues, sort of the requisite teenage anxiety, but some deeper issues connected to that anxiety. And of course, I felt like I knew the source, right? And if she only, ate more fiber and ate more, fermented foods and fixed her gut, and all of her serotonin was made in the gut and all these things, and she shouldn't get on SSRIs because the number needed to treat was 7, or maybe it was 8, but I knew, and that's what I was coming at her with all of the time, until finally I had to realize that she wasn't looking for a gastroenterologist, in me. She wasn't looking for me to be her psychotherapist. She was looking for me to be her dad and just to listen.
Lolli. I remember her when she was like 4, dress falling off of her body, just running around like a maniac, loving her father. Oh, God.
Yeah.
How old is she now?
She is a freshman at the University of North Carolina.
Don't even.
Yeah.
And she's doing fine. She's doing better.
Yeah, she's doing great. I mean, we dropped her off. That was
a beautiful
interesting.
Essay.
And it was tricky. Yeah. Just to watch her try to navigate her way into a state school with 35,000 people that all know each other. But it's been character building, and she's doing better and better every day. So,
do you remember the name of the piece that you wrote about that drop off? Was that in your Substack?
Yeah, I don't know, was it called Code Switching? I think. I mean, it sort of goes into a little bit to my own kind of small t traumatic youth of getting moved around all the time, and all the efforts that I would leverage to fit in, and my accent mimicry, which is something that my children tease me about endlessly, and it's a proclivity of many dads to adopt the accent of everyone and anyone that they're talking with, and I do this on the podcast all the time, so there's fossil record of it. And of course, when we unpack the origin of that behavior, it's generally about trying to forge connection. And for me, I was moving from country to country, so going to new schools every few months in a new language with new cliques of friends to try to fit in. And so I would do anything. I'd compromise any authentic aspect of myself in order to belong. And in many cases, I was speaking a new language, and I just carried that tyranny of the past as Peter Levine calls it, that rucksack into adulthood, and it's sort of become an unconscious, involuntary behavior to serve the need to forge connection. And so I saw, Lolli as I dropped her off at UNC, struggling in the same way of, oh my God, I don't know anybody here. 90% of the people here are in state. There's packs of girls running around, and I'm just feeling completely left out. And I was teasing her that she's going to adopt a southern drawl and start saying y'all all the time in order to fit. So, but I don't think she is.
The fun part about this this particular post, which I'll include in our notes, is the fact that you're talking about you, and I got to learn something about you that I never knew before, how you were moved around. I just never knew that. And it was very touching to me. I don't know why it explained things for me, like your love of music and the depth of your attention and a few things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I sat with Gabor one day, and he was, we were kind of unpacking my peripatetic youth and, my proclivity to assume accents. And then, he's like, well, what have you done in your adult life? And I was like, well, I used to promote concerts. And he's like, oh, okay, so you started bringing people together in community? I'm like, yeah. And then what did you do? Well, I did Wanderlust. And he's like, well, what was that? I was like, well, that was bringing people, to these huge festivals. And he's like, well, what do you do now? And I was like, I run a thing called Commune. He's like, there you go. He's like, you've unwittingly devoted your entire life to creating containers for belonging because you know how important that is viscerally because you didn't belong as a kid. I'm like, oh, shit.
Oh, that one brings a tear to my eye.
Yeah. Seems so obvious, but yeah.
What's weirdest is that I'm like in so much full acknowledgement of your humanity, and my whole life has literally benefited from your grief and your unbelonging as a child. My whole life was changed because of it.
Wow.
Think of it.
I mean, thanks for saying that. But I think that, this is what we do. We transmute our grief, into growth. And that's another, just to come back to your book, the loss of your mom, I feel like, as I was reading it, there's this section that I probably wouldn't make it through in a recording, but I might try. That it reminded me sort of T.S. Eliot, what we think we think of as an end is always a beginning. The end of something old is the beginning of something new. You write about this, like, I spent so much of my 20s and 30s wishing she'd give me a little more space. You're talking about your mom.
Yeah.
And every time I close my eyes during the next 2 days, those moments are all I can see in the slideshow of my consciousness, her longing face pleading with me, why not just stay? Forgiving myself will become a practice in the coming days, weeks, years.
Yep. That was so rough. That was the roughest part.
Yeah.
That was literally the roughest moment. Because when she died, there was like a full transmission and a forgiveness that I felt deep in my body. Like everything was fine. And I just wouldn't make that mistake. I wouldn't be quite so, if I may, and with all due respect to my mom, needy with my kid. And that has borne fruit. I let him be. And he just decided this year that he likes to call me every day. So he calls every day. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I didn't ask.
Yeah. Well, this is a place where, we take our grief and, every once in a while we can find we're worthy of our suffering.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And we can become better for it, and I think the way that you mother is a reflection of that journey, of that healing, of that transmission from grief to growth.
Yeah.
And I see that, in my own relationship with my kids, and, I have a different, similarly, like, my daughter will come in and, on one level, I'm just like, leave me the fuck alone so I can write. I'm
Yes.
busy. I'm writing. I just need some peace to write. And then the second she leaves, I miss her.
Ugh, Lolly.
So
Oh, that's Micah. Is that Micah still home?
yeah, Mike is still at home. I've got one left at home,
Oh, God.
and so I know that sort of chiaroscuro of holding on and letting go, and holding on and letting go.
Yeah.
And I think life is one big letting go. It's a big exhale, and we exhale. We have confidence in exhaling because we know that there is another inhale available to us. Otherwise, we'd never exhale.
Right.
And of course, I'm praying that the same is true for daughters. But
Let us
but
pray.
that we have, yeah. But we have to let go, and we have to trust. And I think it's a beautiful. You write a lot about the trust that you build with Jonah, particularly over the COVID time period. And that's a beautiful thing. In the Tao, I think there's a line. It's like, when we don't trust the people, we make them untrustworthy. And this is
Totally.
like obviously what we see in our greater body politic, but this is also true in our most intimate relationships. If we don't trust, people become untrustworthy. And this is why we need to let go and surrender and trust.
Allow them to be who they are.
Yeah.
I think what's most interesting about this part is that if we don't trust ourselves, we can't trust anybody else.
Mm.
And a lot of this, the writing of this and me telling my story, because this was not the original book. I thought I was going to be like the teacher, Zen teacher, so douchey. And now she gave me, my editor gave me the whole thing back. She's like, well, not exactly. And I had to write stories about myself. And in so doing, I kind of like, I started just being okay with being imperfect, totally just feel, pardon my French, just completely fucked up at times and messing things up constantly. And suddenly I realized the value in that, as you said, and just letting it be and trusting myself anyway, and trusting that if I'm honest about things, everything will fall into place, and it does.
Yeah, that's one thing I've really tried to create in the home for the girls is, this culture of fallibility, right? That it's totally okay to be wrong. In fact, you get a pat on the back if you're wrong, especially if you admit it.
Totally.
And that we evolve through mistakes. We literally evolve evolutionarily through mistakes. We call them mutations, and often they're adaptive and often they're not, but nature selects for the best of them. And in the same way, if we can trust ourselves and live with our mistakes, every once in a while we actually stumble on something better than we could have ever possibly conceived. And this is part of really building trust, and really not knowing the next word or thought that's going to come out of your mouth, but trusting that from time to time, you'll land on something that you couldn't have otherwise preconceived.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I feel like that's happened here even. My original intent is not what happened, and
Sorry.
it's completely perfect and fine as it is. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
another point that I found to be very resonant is this emptiness as creative compost. And it's so key, because when your cup is full, there's no more space. And I really find this with my own writing. I just need to empty the cup and to become quiet and walk. And I mean, we know this all the time when we can't remember somebody's name, right? It'd be like, but we know what it's not. It's not Bob and it's not Frank. And then we go on for a walk and then it's like, oh, it's Jack, like
Right.
it just pops into consciousness. And, this is also true for all forms of creative inspiration, is to like be able to really cultivate that emptiness and create the space for inspiration.
Yep. This is where we're at. It's nice to get older.
Yeah, I know.
It really is.
You can even have really good sex in your 50s.
All I know is I just taught a weekend with Dr. Sarah.
Okay.
And she and I
Wow.
learned so much from her, and she and I are going to go on and do some other work together. But
Okay.
I got some intel from that woman to that end that
Oh,
is
yeah.
really exciting, to
Yeah.
say the very least.
Yeah, she's found her stride for sure.
Totally, totally. More on that another time.
Yes, that yeah. That was not necessarily a reflection on the book. Um,
We're still holding nothing here.
yeah.
I just need to say thank you so much for taking this time today to talk to me and to reflect. I feel every time I talk to one of my friends about this project, I feel a little more encouragement and confidence, and I really appreciate your time, Jeff.
Well, you should feel completely confident. It's a wonderful piece of work. And like I said, it really puts me into another place. I mean, Edison and Einstein, they all, talk about this theta state in which they had like their most creative, innovative ideas. This place of almost, non-sleep deep rest that our friend Tracy Stanley is so good at cultivating.
Yes.
And your book really propels me into that space.
Mm.
It brings out the best in me, so I'm very appreciative for that, and I love what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I really, really thank you, and I love you, and I appreciate you endlessly. Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.